The council chamber of Zephyra Prime had never been so quiet. 1,200 representatives from across the galaxy sat in stunned silence, their various forms of breathing apparatus creating the only sounds in the vast crystalline hall. At the center of the chamber, the holographic display still flickered with the aftermath of what humanity had done. Ambassador Veltar of the Krillian Empire shifted nervously in his biomechanical suit, his compound eyes fixed on the human delegation. 3 humans sat calmly in the defendant section: General Patricia Hayes, Admiral Chen Wei-Ming, and Dr. Elena Volkov. Their faces showed no remorse, no fear, only cold satisfaction. Councillor Zix behind the Lenia. His ethereal form shimmered as he spoke, his voice carrying across the chamber through quantum resonance. "Humans of Earth," he began, his usual diplomatic composure cracking, "what you have done defies all conventions of civilized warfare. The hegemony of Arcturus was a sovereign member of this council for over 2,000 years." General Hayes stood up slowly, her weathered face bearing the scars of countless battles. "Was," she emphasized, "past tense. They chose to make it past tense when they glassed Terra Nova." The holographic display shifted, showing the barren remains of what had once been humanity's first successful colony world. 23 million souls had called Terra Nova home. Now, it was nothing but cooling slag and radioactive ash. The hegemony was enforcing Council Resolution 847 Delta, protested Ambassador Kethlon, his translucent blue form rippling with agitation. "Your colony violated the expansion protocols. They harvested from protected systems." Dr. Volkov's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Protected by whom? You?" She gestured at the assembled aliens. "Terra Nova was mining asteroids in unclaimed space. The only thing we violated was your monopoly on rare Earth elements." Admiral Chen leaned forward in his chair. "Let me make sure I understand the Council's position. 23 million human civilians deserve to die because we collected rocks in empty space that your protocols claimed belonged to no one, but somehow also belonged to everyone except us." The hegemony's surviving representative, Ambassador Crixhall, stood with difficulty. Half of his carapace was still regenerating from the human retaliation, synthetic biomesh covering where his natural armor had been torn away. "You murdered 18 billion Arcturian citizens," he screamed, his translator struggling with the emotional overtones. 18 billion. You turned our homeworld's atmosphere into poison. Our moons are graveyards. Our orbital cities are debris fields. General Hayes turned to face him directly. "Yes, we did." The simple, cold admission sent a wave of shocked whispers throughout the chamber. Even the Council's most hardened diplomats from warrior species looked disturbed by the humans' matter-of-fact tone. "You want to know how?" Hayes continued, ignoring the growing chaos in the chamber. "We studied every piece of intelligence we could gather about hegemony biology, chemistry, atmospheric composition, and defensive capabilities. Then we engineered a targeted bioweapon that would interact specifically with Arcturian respiratory systems, turning their own atmosphere into a slow-acting neurotoxin." Dr. Volkov picked up the explanation with clinical detachment. The beauty of it was the delivery system. "We didn't need to penetrate their shields or engage their fleets. We simply released aerosol canisters during diplomatic visits to their major population centers. By the time symptoms appeared, it was already in their entire atmospheric circulation system. Used diplomatic immunity to commit genocide." Councillor Zix Prime's ethereal form flared with outrage. Admiral Chen shrugged. "You taught us that." The hegemony hid their fleet movements behind cultural exchange programs. They used scientific expeditions to scout our defensive positions. They literally turned our children's school field trips into reconnaissance missions before they attacked. We simply learned from the masters. The Vegan Confederation's representative, a being of pure crystallized thought, pulsed with what translated. The silence stretched as Hayes walked slowly around the chamber, her boots echoing off the crystal floor. You formed a committee. Then you formed a committee to oversee the first committee. You held hearings about whether to hold hearings. You debated the definition of genocide while the ashes of our children were still warm. You spent 2 years protecting the hegemony because they had economic ties to half this chamber. Dr. Volkov stood to join her colleague. So we decided to teach you a lesson about consequences. Actions have them, whether you acknowledge it or not. The hegemony ambassador collapsed into his seat, his breathing apparatus wheezing. You've doomed yourselves. The other powers will unite against you now. The Confederation, the Empire, the Collective, they'll never let this stand. Admiral Chen consulted his wrist display casually. Actually, they already tried. About 6 hours ago, the combined fleets of 17 council members attempted a police action against Earth. A new hologram materialized, showing a debris field where the Allied fleet had been. Twisted metal and bioorganic components drifted in the void, occasionally illuminated by the fires of dying ships. We've been preparing for this day since Terra Nova burned, Chen continued. While you debated, we innovated. While you politicked, we weaponized. Every diplomatic mission we sent out gathered intelligence. Every cultural exchange downloaded your military databases. Every peaceful human colony was actually a forward weapons platform. The chamber erupted into chaos as representatives scrambled to contact their homeworlds, suddenly realizing that decades of human diplomatic presence might not have been as benign as they'd assumed. Councillor Zix Prime managed to restore order with difficulty. "What do you want?" he asked, his ancient voice heavy with defeat. General Hayes returned to her seat and looked up at the council with dead eyes. "We want you to remember that when you ignore justice, you get vengeance. When you enable monsters, you create bigger monsters. And when you mistake human patience for human weakness." She gestured at the holographic graveyard where the hegemony homeworld had been. "You learn the difference the hard way." The council chamber remained silent for a very long time,